Audiobook number 4.
The RV Family Series.
Part 1 of 2. Chapter 1. A New Road.
The RV door slammed shut with a soft thunk, and dust kicked up around the tires as the Wexler family pulled out of Rattlesnake Flats for good. Mayo Wexler sat cross-legged at the dining booth, staring out the window. The desert was still waking up long shadows stretching across empty roads, the horizon painted in slow pinks and oranges. He watched it blur past, the dry earth now behind them, the strangeness of the spiral, the voices, the way he could hear people's worst thoughts, all of it in the rear view. Mom handed back a warm cinnamon roll wrapped in foil, and he gave her a quiet thanks. She tousled his hair before going to sit up front with Dad.
New day, Dad said,
voice low as the road hummed beneath them.
New job, new town. Let's make it a good one.
Mayo unwrapped the roll slowly. His little brother Robbie sat across from him, feet swinging off the bench, whispering to his action figures. Jesse was half asleep, hoodie over his face, headphones in, pretending the world didn't exist.
Typical Jesse.
And then there was Meatball. The chubby, one-eared French bulldog snorted from his bed under the table, rolled onto his back, and kicked one leg lazily in the air. So, remind me again why we didn't stay in the haunted town with the creepy sandstorms and the spiral that made your nose bleed. Sounded like paradise, Meatball said. In Mayo's mind, of course. His voice was always sarcastic, always just a little too dramatic.
Mayo chuckled softly.
We needed a break, Mayo whispered back.
From almost dying? From learning you can hear people's gross, selfish brain goo?
Sure. Let's take a vacation where there's no Wi-Fi and everyone drives horse buggies. It's not that old, Mayo said, but even he wasn't convinced. His dad's new job was in a place called The Hill, a historic town where motor vehicles were banned within city limits.
Everything had to be authentic to 1910.
Mayo could barely wrap his head around it. What kind of town didn't allow cars?
Still, it sounded simple, quiet. Maybe that was what they needed. Still think we should have gone to Disneyland, Meatball added with a snort.
He flipped onto his belly and thudded his head onto Mayo's foot.
Mayo leaned down and scratched behind his ears. Yeah, well, maybe next summer.
He looked out the window again, this time not back at the desert, but forward, toward green hills and old buildings and whatever secrets the next town held.
He wasn't just a regular kid anymore.
He could hear what people tried to hide. He could hear animals. He could sense things. And even though it scared him sometimes, Mayo Wexler had already made up his mind.
He was going to use his gift for good.
Because there was always another mystery out there.
And he and Meatball?
They were ready.
Chapter 2. Welcome to the Hill.
The sign was carved out of wood, hand-painted with bold black letters and trimmed with gold leaf that had begun to flake. It stood just outside the old gates of the town. Welcome to the Hill. EST 1910, honor the past, live the present. The Wexlers' RV creaked to a stop at a gravel pull-off just outside city limits. Beyond the sign, Mayo could already tell this wasn't going to be like anywhere they'd ever been. The road narrowed into cobblestone and dipped beneath an arched bridge draped with ivy. A horse-drawn carriage clattered along, the driver wearing a bowler hat and long coat. Women in wide-brimmed hats walked past shops with wooden signs swinging in the breeze. Jesse leaned forward and pulled an e-bud out.
Where the heck are we?
It's called The Hill, Dad replied, easing the RV into a dusty campsite half a mile out. One of the last fully preserved turn-of-the-century towns in America.
They know it's not actually 1910, right?
Jesse muttered, popping the earbud back in. Mrs. Wexler reached back and handed Mayo a glossy pamphlet with curled corners. The Hill, a living museum, motorized vehicles not permitted inside city gates. Visitors encouraged to embrace historical dress.
Come experience the past, stay for the charm.
They really go all in, Mom said cheerily.
Isn't that fun?
Fun, Meatball piped up in Mayo's head.
This place smells like hay, regret, and unwashed suspenders. Mayo tried not to laugh.
As Dad got out to speak with the park manager, a wiry man in overalls who nodded more than he spoke, the boys spilled out into the late morning heat. Robbie immediately ran to the grassy area near the fence, where a few kids were kicking around a handmade soccer ball. Mayo stayed back, Meatball waddling beside him, tongue hanging out. Something about the town tugged at him. It wasn't like Rattlesnake Flats, where the weirdness buzzed in the air like a mosquito. This place was slower, but it felt coated in something, like paint over rust. "I don't like the way this place smells," Meatball said, nose twitching. "And I don't mean horse poop. I mean something's off." "You're just saying that because you hate walking." "True. But also, I have instincts, buddy. Ancient bulldog wisdom. And my instincts say this place has secrets." Mayo gave the dog a look. "Everywhere has secrets." Robbie came racing back across the grass, dragging two kids behind him. A girl with wild dark curls and a wide grin, and a boy with scuffed boots and dirt on his cheeks. "This is Ellie. She's 13 and knows how to spit water through her teeth like a snake. And this is Landon. He has a dog, too." Landon gave a shy smile and pointed behind him. Shuffling through the field came a slow-moving, barrel-chested blue-nosed pit bull with cloudy eyes and a drooping tongue. "That's Zeus," he said. "He's old, but he's wise." Meatball squinted. "Looks like he's one dust bath away from retirement." But as Zeus reached them, the big dog sniffed at Mayo and then at Meatball. He gave a slow nod. "You're the one who hears," Zeus said in a voice that sounded like rolling thunder in Mayo's mind. "And your friend smells like peanut butter and vanity." Mayo's eyes widened. Meatball took a step back. "Wait, you can talk?" "You talk." "I listen more than I talk." "But yes," Zeus said. "We have things to discuss. Later." Then he padded over to lie down in a patch of sun, already dozing off. "What just happened?" Mayo whispered. "The old ones can talk. This is huge. I thought I was the only one." Meatball whispered back. "Also, did he just call me vain?" "Probably," Mayo said, and scratched his dog's ear. That afternoon, the sun dipped low over the edge of the hill. Horses clopped by. A bell tower chimed 5 o'clock sharp. And even though everything looked calm and historic, Mayo couldn't shake the feeling that something strange was waiting underneath the polished charm of this place. Something was coming. And this time, he wouldn't wait for trouble to find them. He was going to start looking first. Chapter 3: New Friends, Old Dog. The next morning broke warm and golden, and the Wexler's RV was already alive with movement. Mom flipped pancakes on the griddle, singing softly to a radio that crackled with old-timey music. Dad was outside on a folding chair with a thick binder balanced on his knee, talking quietly into his work phone. The job hadn't officially started yet, but Mayo could tell his dad was already deep in it. Jesse hadn't left his bunk. But Mayo, Robbie, and Meatball were already halfway down the gravel path toward the grassy lot near the edge of the RV park, where Ellie, Landon, and Zeus were waiting. "Guess who brought apple fritters?" Ellie shouted, holding up a greasy brown paper bag. Her curls bounced as she ran. "You had me at fritters," Mayo said. They dropped into a circle in the grass, passing the bag around and licking sticky cinnamon off their fingers. Zeus lay beside Landon, nose tucked under one paw, looking half asleep, but one eye cracked open when Meatball approached. "So, what's your deal, wise guy?" Meatball asked, circling him like a squishy little satellite. "I've lived a long life," Zeus said calmly, "and I listen more than I bark. Try it sometime." "Not really my brand." Mayo leaned toward Landon. "He's 15. "Yep," Landon said proudly. "Used to be a rescue. My grandpa said Zeus saved his life in a snowstorm when he was a puppy. He's part dog, part legend." Zeus gave a single slow blink. Meatball snorted. Ellie reached into her pocket and pulled out a tiny notebook with colorful tabs sticking out in every direction. "Okay," she said seriously. "We've got exactly 1 day to show you the town before the grown-ups try to ruin the fun." "Agreed," Mayo said. She flipped open a page titled, Tour for people who aren't boring.
Stop 1. The candy shop. Best rock candy west of the Mississippi. Stop 2. The fountain where Old Man Hickory claims he saw a ghost. Stop 3. The alley behind the blacksmiths where kids go to trade stuff their parents don't know about. You mean like snacks? Robbie asked, wide-eyed.
Snacks, buttons, weird coins, secret notes, Ellie said.
Whatever. You just gotta know the password. What's the password? Ellie smirked. Nice try. They headed toward the cobbled road leading to the town gate. The air smelled like fresh bread and cutwood. Butterflies floated through the wildflowers along the roadside. People waved from porches and wagons rolled by pulled by horses with braided manes. Mayo's eyes wandered, catching glimpses of old posters tacked to bulletin boards and alley walls. Town meeting tonight. Hall of Records, support the mayor. Keep our heritage strong. Notice, trespassing near the mines strictly prohibited. The last one made him pause. Hey, he asked Landon, are there mines here? Yeah, Landon said. Old gold mines. Haven't been used in decades. My uncle says they're dangerous and full of snakes. Robbie gulped audibly. Pass. As they crossed into town, Mayo heard it. A buzz. Not in the air, but in the people. A woman smiled at them, but her thoughts were full of dread. If they come by again, I have to pay up. I have to. A man sweeping his stoop muttered with a grin. Just 2 more days and we'll be in the clear. Malachi always pays his debts. Mayo blinked. It was like tuning into a cracked radio station, little flashes of things people didn't say. He felt Meatball brush against his leg. You okay, kid? Yeah, Mayo said quietly. Just. Static again. Want me to distract you with a joke about squirrels? Not yet. They visited the candy shop, which did have incredible rock candy, the fountain, no ghost, and the alley, where the password turned out to be Picklefoot. Ellie haggled a shiny marble out of a kid with a bag of beef jerky. Robbie swapped a mint for a weird metal badge that said Deputy. But later, as the sun stretched long shadows through the town, Mayo paused in the middle of the street. Something felt off. Not bad, but twisted, like everything here had been spun around backward. He turned to Ellie. Hey, has anyone ever looked into what's really going on in this town? Ellie tilted her head. You mean like conspiracies? Like why everything looks perfect, but people act like they're being watched. Landon looked around nervously. You shouldn't talk like that out loud. Someone might hear. Mayo narrowed his eyes. And right then, Zeus lifted his big head, looked straight at Mayo, and said in a low rumble, You're not wrong, but you're not ready. Chapter 4. Trouble in Town. The next morning, Mayo woke to the sound of wagons rolling by and the smell of campfire toast. Mom was outside in her flannel robe, flipping slices of bread over the fire pit, humming something soft and familiar. Robbie was already halfway through a cup of cocoa, his face sticky with melted marshmallow. Town day, Robbie chirped. Ellie says there's a kid-run carnival near the stables. More like a junkyard with ticket stubs, Jessie said, emerging from the RV, eyes still half closed. I saw it yesterday. Not impressed. You don't have to come, Mayo muttered. Jessie shrugged. Wasn't planning to. Meatball hopped down the last RV step with a grunt and yawned wide enough to show every single tooth. Okay, Meatball said telepathically, so are we doing the mystery thing today? Or are we still pretending this town isn't dripping with secrets? Let's play it cool, Mayo whispered back. But yeah, let's keep our ears open. They met up with Ellie, Landon, and Zeus near the covered bridge on the edge of town. The bridge had old carvings in the wood, names, dates, and symbols that looked like family crests or maybe secret codes. I've got 2 boiled eggs, a deck of cards, and a belt buckle to trade, Ellie announced. We're going to the carnival. Robbie gasped like she'd just offered him a treasure map. Let's go. The carnival turned out to be a lopsided stretch of backlit between the stable and the general store. Wooden crates made up a ring toss, and a half-built seesaw sat in the dirt. Kids shouted, bargained, and dared each other to ride the rope swing over a shallow stream. But as they played, Landon wandered too far into a back alley. Mayo noticed just in time to hear a loud thud and a startled shout. He raced over with Meatball at his side. 3 older boys, maybe 14, maybe rougher, had Landon by the collar. His hat was in the dirt. One of them had a slingshot hanging from his wrist and a crooked scar across his lip. "You from the flats?" The scar-lipped boy sneered. "You don't belong here." "He's with me," Mayo said, stepping in. The tallest boy turned. "Oh, yeah? And who are you supposed to be?" "President of the Baby Brigade." Mayo didn't answer. He stepped in front of Landon. "Leave him alone." "Or what?" Scarlip grinned. Before Mayo could even think of a comeback, Meatball barreled between them and let out the weirdest, loudest, most ridiculous growl Mayo had ever heard, a sort of half-yodel, half-snort that echoed off the alley walls. Everyone froze. Is that dog laughing?" one boy asked. "Forget this," the tall one muttered. "We're out." They scattered. Meatball sat down proudly. "Sometimes a little unhinged confidence goes a long way," he said. Landon picked up his hat. "Thanks, Mayo. That was awesome." "You okay?" Mayo asked. Landon nodded, but Mayo saw the fear still clinging to his shoulders like smoke. When they rejoined the others, Ellie looked shaken. "You really don't want to get on the wrong side of kids like that." "They work for the mayor's brother, Judah. He lets them do whatever they want as long as they snitch on people." Mayo's stomach turned. "The sheriff," he said. "Yeah," Ellie whispered. "The only thing worse than getting in trouble here is trying to tell the truth." That night, Mayo sat out under the stars with Meatball curled beside him and the sounds of crickets in the tall grass. The RV park was quiet, but Mayo's thoughts weren't. He could hear whispers in the night, not real ones, but thoughts. Faint and scattered. "Gotta pay by Friday." Saw lights near the old shaft. "I miss him. I miss her. I miss who I used to be." He sighed. "What do you think, Meatball?" "I think we found the wrong kind of playground." "I also think something big is going on here. Bigger than we thought." Mayo nodded slowly. "You ever feel like something's calling to you? Like under the ground?" Meatball blinked. "I usually ignore things underground. Worms. Moles. Old chewing gum. But yeah, something's stirring down there." Mayo looked out at the hills behind the town, rolling, quiet, dark. He didn't know what was buried there yet, but he was starting to think the hill had a secret it would do anything to protect. Chapter 5. The Man in the Alley. The next morning, a fog hung over the hill like a memory. The sun hadn't quite broken through, and everything felt a little quieter, like the town was holding its breath. Mayo pulled on his hoodie, zipped it halfway, and left a note for Mom on the RV counter. "Gone for a walk with Meatball. Be back before lunch." He tucked a granola bar into his pocket and slipped out the door before anyone else stirred. Meatball trotted alongside him, ears flopping with each step. "Where are we going this early, Sherlock?" "Back to that alley," Mayo said. "Something about those kids and the way people talk when they think no one's listening. I just want to see if there's anything left behind." They passed through the sleepy town streets, past the candy shop's shuttered windows, the still empty stables, the old school bell tower that hadn't rung in decades. As they rounded the corner near the back alley, Mayo paused. A man was sitting on a crate in the shadows. Old, real old, with a face like bark and a long, bent nose. His coat looked like it had been through 20 winters. And he was whittling something with a pocket knife, slowly, like time didn't matter. Meatball stopped, sniffed the air, and said into Mayo's head, "That guy smells like pipe smoke and secrets." The man looked up and gave a nod like he'd been expecting them. "You the one asking questions?" he rasped. Mayo blinked. Maybe." The man chuckled dryly. "Don't worry. I ain't gonna bite. You look like someone who listens. That's rare around here." He patted the crate beside him. Mayo hesitated, then sat. Meatball curled at his feet. I saw what you did yesterday, the man said, standing up to those boys. Good's fine, but you need to be careful. There's more rot in this town than you can smell. Mayo leaned in. What kind of rot? The man's hands never stopped moving, shaving tiny curls of wood from the stick in his hand. The kind that grows under gold. The kind that eats a place from the inside out while the top looks clean and sweet. You ever dig in soft earth and find bugs underneath? Mayo nodded slowly. That's this place. Malachi and Judah, those two brothers, they've been buying up every square foot of land around here for years. And not to save the town. What are they after? The man paused. His whittling stopped. His eyes were sharp now, not sleepy at all. You come back tomorrow morning, he said, his voice lower now. I'll tell you. But you better bring your ears and your boots, 'cause what I'm gonna say will blow your socks clean off. Meatball wagged his tail. I don't wear socks, but I like this guy. Mayo stood. Okay, tomorrow morning. Same time. The man nodded once. And don't tell no grown-ups. Most of them are too scared or too blind. That night, Mayo sat under the stars again. He didn't tell Mom. He didn't tell Dad. Not even Jesse, who was still brooding inside the RV, earbuds in and eyes distant. But he told Robbie and Ellie and Landon just enough. There's something buried in this town, Mayo said. Something big. And we're gonna find out what it is. Robbie's eyes widened. Like buried treasure? Ellie leaned forward. Or something worse? Landon looked at Zeus, who just huffed quietly and closed his eyes. Meatball licked a paw and said, Guess we'll find out tomorrow. Unless the old man disappears mysteriously. Which, let's be honest, totally sounds like what's about to happen. Mayo didn't laugh. He had that feeling again, the one like a clock ticking somewhere deep below the ground. Time was running out. Chapter 6. The Old Man's Secret. The fog was even thicker the next morning, wrapping the world in quiet. Mayo could barely see the path ahead, but he didn't need to. He remembered exactly where the old man had been. Meatball padded beside him, shaking dew off his paws with every step. I don't like this, Meatball said in Mayo's head. It smells like damp lies and broken promises. Mayo didn't answer. His chest was tight. He had a feeling. A bad one. When they reached the alley, the crate was there, but it was empty. Mayo scanned the shadows. No old man. No pocket knife. Not even the curls of what he'd been whittling. Just silence. Then he saw it. A small patch of dry dirt where the fog hadn't reached. A flattened space. A dark smear. And a hat. The old man's. Crumpled, like someone had stepped on it. Meatball sniffed and growled low. This wasn't old age, kid. Someone didn't want him talking. Mayo swallowed hard. He knelt and picked up the hat. Beneath it, tucked into the brim, was a scrap of paper. It said 3 things. Gold, tunnel, hill house. Mayo stared at the words, the letters shaky and uneven. Gold, he whispered. There really is gold under this town. And people are willing to kill for it, Meatball added. We've got a real problem now. Back at the RV park, Mayo gathered the team. Ellie sat cross-legged on a picnic table, Landon leaned on Zeus, and Robbie clutched a juice pouch like it was a walkie-talkie. Meatball sprawled on his back, paws in the air, pretending not to care, though Mayo knew he was listening to every word. Mayo held up the scrap of paper. The old man was going to tell me everything. Now he's gone. This is all he left. Ellie narrowed her eyes. Hill House? That's where Malachi lives. The mayor. It's at the top of the hill. Big iron fence, old gas lamps, security patrol once a night. Robbie blinked. They live in the creepy place named after the town? That's like putting your bad guy starter kit on display. We have to go there, Mayo said. We have to find the tunnel. No way they'd let kids in, Landon muttered. We won't ask, Ellie said, cracking a smile. We sneak. Meatball wagged. Now this is starting to sound like an adventure. I suggest we bring snacks. And possibly a crowbar.
That afternoon, the gang mapped out a plan. Ellie borrowed her dad's binoculars and scoped out the patrol times. Landon found a drainage ditch that led under the hill fence. Robbie made a distraction kit: marbles, flashlight, string, and 2 cans of fizzy lemonade, in case anyone got thirsty or sticky. Mayo packed the note, a flashlight, and something else: his journal. He didn't know why, but something told him this part needed to be remembered. As twilight fell and the gas lamps on the hill flickered to life, the kids crouched in the tall grass, waiting. "You guys ready?" Mayo asked. Ellie gave a firm nod. Landon adjusted his cap. Robbie took a nervous sip of lemonade. Zeus gave a soft whine but didn't move. And Meatball grinned. "If I die, tell everyone I was the good kind of weird." They crawled through the ditch, hearts pounding, flashlights off, feet quiet as clouds. Tomorrow, they'd find the tunnel. Tonight, they stepped into the heart of the mystery. Chapter 7. Beneath the Hill House. The drainage ditch was damp, dark, and smelled like old socks and rust. But to Mayo, it smelled like a clue. "Quiet now," he whispered, his voice barely louder than a breath. The 5 of them, Mayo, Ellie, Landon, Robbie, and Meatball, crawled on hands and knees through the low, muddy tunnel. Zeus stayed behind with a quiet grumble. He was too old for tight squeezes and sneaky missions, but he gave them a solemn stare, like a knight sending young squires into battle. Meatball brought up the rear, muttering telepathically as he bumped his head. "If this leads to a sewer, I swear I'm retiring. I'm too dignified for this." The ditch led up beneath the back side of the Hill House property. Mayo had seen it before: a huge brick mansion with ivy-covered chimneys, crooked weather vanes, and stained glass windows that looked like dragon eyes watching the town below. They emerged behind an overgrown hedge. Ahead was the backyard: dead grass, a rusted fountain, and a gazebo that leaned just a little too far to the left. The gas lamps glowed orange in the dusk, casting long shadows across the lawn. There Ellie whispered, pointing to a cellar door half hidden beneath a sagging rose trellis. They ran low, hearts thumping, and huddled around the door. Mayo gave the handle a tug. Locked. Landon reached into his backpack and pulled out a paperclip. "Saw this on a spy show once," he said. He fiddled with the lock. Click. Click. Snap. Nothing. "Step aside," Meatball said in their heads. "I may be a dog, but I once saw a squirrel open a jar of pickles. Watch and learn." He pushed his snout under the edge of the door, wiggled, and then... click. It opened. Ellie stared at him. "You're magic." "I get that a lot." The cellar was cold and smelled like old stone and metal. They descended the creaky steps with flashlights off, relying on the faint moonlight filtering in through the slats above. "Look," Robbie whispered. A wall had collapsed in the back, revealing a narrow tunnel made of brick and wood beams. It sloped downward, deep into the earth. Mayo felt it again. That vibration in his bones. That whisper in his ears. That quiet hum that animals sometimes made right before something big happened. He stepped into the tunnel. The air grew cooler with each step. Their footsteps echoed. Somewhere in the dark, water dripped. And deeper still, there was a sound like wind or breathing. The tunnel opened into a stone chamber. A single lantern hung on the wall, flickering. In the center of the room was a map, an old, cracked map carved into a slab of slate. And next to it, stacked in the shadows, were wooden crates. Crates marked with the seal of the hill. Inside them, they found scraps of paper, ledgers, coins, and bars of gold. Real gold. Ellie gasped. "This is it. This is the town's fortune." "They've been hoarding it," Mayo said, "while the town's been starving." "Where did it come from?" Landon asked. Mayo ran a finger along the slate map. There were tunnels. Hundreds of them. Beneath homes, stores, the school, the church. It was like a spider web of secrets beneath the town. "Somebody's been digging for over 100 years, Mayo said. And I think the brothers figured it out."
Robbie frowned. What if they're still digging? That's when they heard it boots, heavy and fast. Voices shouting. Flashlight beams cutting through the dark behind them. Run, Mayo yelled. They grabbed the map, the lantern, 1 gold coin, and ran. Back through the tunnel, up the stairs, through the cellar, out the door. The brothers' men shouted behind them. But the kids were fast. They knew the ditch. They scrambled in, ducked low, and didn't look back. They didn't stop until they reached the RV park, panting and muddy. Meatball collapsed with a satisfied grunt. Okay, he said. Now I'm officially part of a treasure heist. Check that off the bucket list. Mayo sat on the grass, staring at the coin in his hand. It gleamed in the moonlight. They'll come after us now, Ellie said. Let them, Mayo replied, because now we know the truth. Chapter 8. The Secret Gets Out. The morning sun spilled golden light across the RV park like someone had poured syrup over everything. It should have felt peaceful, but it didn't. Mayo couldn't stop staring at the gold coin. He turned it over in his fingers again and again. On one side was the seal of the hill, an oak tree with twisted roots. On the other, an engraving of a pickaxe and shovel crossed like swords. Meatball sat beside him, his tail thumping the gravel. So, when do we tell your folks you broke into a mansion and uncovered the town's hidden treasure? Never, Mayo whispered. Not yet. Inside the RV, Jesse was blasting music in his headphones and ignoring everyone. Mom was humming while scrambling eggs. Dad had already gone into town, wearing a tie that didn't match his shirt. Shouldn't we be telling someone? Ellie asked as she climbed up onto the picnic table next to Mayo. Like the news or the mayor of a different town? Not yet, Mayo said again. We don't have proof the brothers are behind the murder. Or the theft. If we tell someone now, they'll just cover it up. Then we need more evidence, Landon said, hopping up with Robbie close behind him. Robbie nodded. And snacks. Every good plan starts with snacks. Meatball gave an approving grunt. Smart kid. Later that day, the group met in the woods behind the RV park with a backpack full of snacks and 1 wrinkled notebook. Mayo spread out the slate map and started tracing the lines with his finger. The tunnels run all the way to the old mill, the train station, the courthouse. Wait, Ellie interrupted. The courthouse basement is sealed off. They say it's full of mold. But what if that's where the brothers are storing the rest of the gold? That's where we go next, Mayo said. But not just us, Landon said with a grin. I think it's time to loop in some backup. Mayo raised an eyebrow. You mean Jesse? Landon nodded. He may be moody, but he's sneaky, and he can drive. Drive what? Landon pulled a tarp off something hidden in the trees. Underneath, it was an old pedal cart with a walkie-talkie duct taped to the side and a seat made out of a lawn chair. Behold, Landon announced, the Recon Rover 3000. I have questions, Meatball said, but I respect the effort. That afternoon, Mayo went back to the RV alone and found Jesse lying on his bunk, flipping through a comic book. Mayo held up the coin. I need your help. Jesse looked at him, unimpressed. Is this about another mystery? Or one of Meatball's talking dreams again? Mayo sat on the edge of the bed. No, this is real. There's gold under this town, and people are in danger. For the first time in a while, Jesse didn't roll his eyes. He leaned forward, took the coin, and stared at it. You serious? Mayo nodded. Dead serious. And I think you're the only one who can get us into the courthouse without being seen. A grin tugged at Jesse's lips. You're lucky I'm grounded anyway. I've got nothing better to do. By nightfall, the gang was ready. Jesse had a flashlight, Ellie brought a rope, Landon carried snacks and extra socks, and Robbie had 3 harmonicas in case of emergencies. Meatball had a bone in his mouth and a mission in his heart. They met behind the courthouse where Jesse knew a loose window that hadn't been fixed in years. One by one, they slipped inside.
The air was thick with dust and silence. Everything was shadowed, old, forgotten. Until Mayo found it. A heavy door in the basement, hidden behind a stack of broken chairs. It had been painted over, but the seal of the hill was carved faintly into the wood. He turned the handle. It opened. Behind it, a long room, stacked with crates. More gold, more records, and a safe in the back. They had proof now. Real, undeniable proof. But just as they turned to leave, a creak echoed through the hall above. Then footsteps. Voices. Malachi, Judah, and someone else. Mayo motioned to the others. Hide. Now. To be continued.